Hello, my name is Mauricio Garrido Juan. I am an English teacher, an IELTS trainer, and today we are going to review one writing that has been done by one of our students. Solange here has a writing, and there are some important aspects related to the grammar that we are going to see. Before we do that, it is important to consider the following. We are going to see some corrections about the writing test 1 and also writing test 2. But just to make a point about something that we have seen in many writings lately. Introduction, development, another development, and the conclusion. We are going to see some aspects related to the structure and the coherence of the writing and all those kind of aspects that are related to the writing in terms of the cohesion and congruency of the writing later. Today we are going to just make a point that is specific here. When we write, of course, the first thing that we do is the opening sentence. Then we paraphrase the main sentence. And finally, we present the thesis, or the reasons, or the global reason, or the intention. Usually called the intention, right? But let's talk about the reasons that we are going to. It is important to present the reasons. It is important to show which direction my writing is going to have for the rest of the development. Why? Because this three-part introduction is actually what is going to introduce and present the topic itself in a general form. Is going to then present the question or the announcements of the question, the topic itself in more specific detail, in which is actually related to. And actually the intention, where my writing is going, what is going to be about, the thesis, the reasons, the global reason, the intention that I have. So it's important that when we write our arguments, those arguments must be related to that. There has to be a connection with the question. Some questions have two parts. Some questions have only one part to discuss. Some questions have two parts to discuss. So it is important to take a look of the question very well. If the question is asking you for two reasons to develop, then we are going to develop two reasons. We need to respond the question completely. That is important, and correctly. So the arguments that we are proposing here must be totally related with the reasons that we have. So that just what I wanted to just clarify in order to be on the right page, okay? So let's talk about these corrections. In the writing test 1, there was a graphic, and then the pie charts presents. The pie charts presents. What is the first thing that we have to identify? The first thing that we have to identify is that we are using a verb. When there is a verb in the sentence, it's very important to understand that this is the most important part of this sentence. Why? Because the verb is what is going to give the intention of the sentence. Without a verb, usually unless we have an adjective, right? But without verbs, without adjectives, sentences usually don't have meaning. So the pie chart presents. And now we are doing this in present time. So we know that the verb is present. Now, what is before is a noun, right? In this case, this noun is the subject that is interacting with that verb. And we should know, and we have to remember that when we are using a subject that is in third person, she, he, or it, the verb in present time usually goes with S. And this use of the S in the third person is to differentiate with the other uses. And it comes from long time ago, but that is a long explanation, in which usually we used to talk like using the do's and does in everything we were talking about. So we were always using the do and does when we were using verbs in affirmative sentences all the time. But this was actually taken away. This was actually, now we avoid using do and does all the time. So that's why in the third person, the does is not used in affirmative sentence, but we have to keep the S on the verb in this case. So these are the only forms in which we will use a verb in present time with an S. Therefore, we have to identify what pie charts is. Is pie charts she? No. Is the pie charts he? No. Is the pie chart it? But is it, a pie chart is it? Yes, but how many of them? More than one, so it's not it. We can say that this chart is they. I mean, it plus it, 2, 3, 4, 5 is already they. Therefore, we are using they plus a verb. When we use they plus a verb, then we don't comply to that. Therefore, the S, it's incorrect. The pie chart present is because it's they present. I hope it's clear. It is more low than the previous. It is more low than the previous. Now the issue here is located right here. This is correct. Then the previous is comparing, right? However, something is wrong here. And it's also very common to see not only more low, but also see this, more lower. And this is even worse, because we are repeating more. So when we talk about this, we have to consider that when we are given a characteristic, low is a characteristic, is an adjective. Adjective will give a characteristic to something. A low chair or a low wall is low. It's actually a low wall. That's a high wall. This is a low wall. And in this case, it would be something that is low. So when we give a characteristic, we are using an adjective. When we give a characteristic, we can also compare that characteristic. And as a third option, we can also say that if we give a characteristic, we compare that characteristic, but we can also say that there's nothing more or there's nothing less than that. The superlative. Let's talk about low. We rule the adjectives in the terms in which they are going to be used by the syllabus that we are using, depending on how many sounds the word has. When it has, usually, right, we don't compare it like this, but this is the best way that I found that is to explain this specific aspect. So we are going to use, and we say low, it has only one sound. Low, one syllable. When it has only one sound or two sounds, we are going to use lower. Lower than. Right? But sometimes we don't use them, depending on if we are intrinsically comparing with something, but we not necessarily need to use them, we don't use them. In this case, lower is replacing more low. So we know already that this is wrong. And the superlative, nothing is less than that, is the lowest. We add the and the est. So we have low, lower, the lowest. What happens when the word that is the adjective has more than two sounds? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Three sounds. Low, one sound. Beautiful. Three sounds. When it has three sounds, then we are going to use more. Okay? In this case will be more. More beautiful than. Right? And the superlative form, nothing more than that. The most beautiful. The most beautiful. So in this case, we are using more to make the comparison. In this case, we are using the most to make the superlative. So when we have an adjective, we use more to compare. And we use the most to show that there's nothing else like that. But when the word only has more than two sounds, in this case, 1, 2, 3, three sounds. More beautiful, the word doesn't change. The most beautiful, the word doesn't change. Now in this case, the word has only one sound. Therefore, we cannot use more low. We have to convert it into lower. So that does not apply for this case. So in this case, we have to always be aware that when we are giving a characteristic to something or someone, we have to count that characteristic word. We have to count how many sounds this word has. That's important to consider. So this is lower than the previous. It also happens in this, oh yeah, right here. They are more faster. So we are giving a characteristic, and not only that, we are giving a characteristic and we are comparing that characteristic. We are saying this is more than something else. But again, faster. Let's talk about the word, the adjective, because this is a comparison, right? So we have the word fast. The word fast. Fast, one sound. So I can say faster. That is more. Therefore, this more is not necessary because it's already here. That is more. It was converted because it has only one sound, one syllable. They carry papers to write to. They carry papers to write to. With to, I'd like to say also something else they are doing, but also they are doing that. So what we like to elicit, what we like to emphasize here is that they are doing something else also. Writing to, in the writing part of the test, in any of the writing test 1 or writing test 2, in the graphic, process, object, or in any of the 3 type of essays, is going to be informal. 2 is more for spoken reasons, purposes. So maybe write also as well. Is going to be more formal than just 2. That is the better option for people. That is the better option for people. Okay, so let's take a look at the sentence. That is the better option for people. That is, we are using any kind of verb here? Nothing. The better, we are using nothing. Option for people, we are not using verbs. So what actually is the word that is giving meaning to the sentence? It's not a verb. So what will be the word that is going to give the meaning to the sentence? Is the adjective. Better. Better. But better than, see, it has the ER, right? So we should be comparing this. It should be a comparative. Are we comparing something, or we are saying that this is actually nothing more for people? When we use the, what we are emphasizing, the and the characteristic, is that there is nothing more or nothing less. That is why when we are making comparisons, when we are comparing, we never use the. Then we have two options. If we are comparing, we are going to say that is a better option for people. I added this A because we need to interact with option. It's an option actually, but we have B here, so it has to be a better option. So that A right there is because of that noun, the option. That is a better option. And if it is going to be a superlative is going to be, that is not the better, the best option for people. So we have to make sure that when we use better, we are comparing. When the word ends with ER, we are comparing. When the word is with EST, we are comparing, but actually we are saying there's nothing else more than that or less than that. And of course, we are using the here. The best, yes, is the superlative form. So I hope that is clear. That type of diet is great for there. That type of diet is great for there. That type of diet is great for there. See you again. Okay, two things to consider, right? The first one is not really important, but it also can help us to have the meaning of the sentence. Is this sentence driven by a characteristic or by an action? What is the main meaning of this sentence? This sentence is driven by a characteristic. We don't have any verb here. See? So it's not driven by an action. It's driven by a characteristic. What is the characteristic of this sentence? Great. That is the characteristic of the sentence. But what is more important in here is the mistake that has been committed. There. When we are giving a characteristic to something, or when we are giving an option, an action, when we are putting an action to someone or something, we don't use there. Because there is when something, it is actually our possession, right? That will be their house, their time, their studies, see? we have different things that are indicating the use and how this use is done. That is important to consider in this case. So that's what we have to just be aware of and keep in mind. Their house is something as an object, is something specific. Their time is something more subjective, but it belongs to them. Their studies, the things that they have to do, actions, see? So their possessions work for objects. Possessions work for something that is more volatile, right? I mean, something that is more subjective, conceptual. Actually, is measured by the clock, our clock, and by actions, things that we have to do in order to study. We have to research, we have to read, we have to write, etc. So that's something that we have to talk about. So that is clear, right? But when something is given a characteristic or something is given in action, right? What we are used is going to be the them. This is what we are going to use when this is great for them. Because actually they are receiving something. They are receiving the appreciation of a characteristic, the measure of this characteristic, or they are receiving an action. We are talking to them. That would be a great solution for them. The first one is an action. So we have an action that relies on someone in this case, and that someone in this case is plural, is them. Or we are giving a characteristic to something or someone, in this case is someone, plural, is good for them, great for them, beneficial for them. So that is important that there here does not apply. Them will be then the word that we have to consider. I'm just going to have one more example in order for this to be very clear. The government is accepting them. Then, this is an action. Or actually we can say the government has a good opinion about them. Now it's action, and good will be then a characteristic. An adjective. So we are going to use them when an action is given to someone or when a characteristic is given to someone. So that's important to consider. Don't forget that. That's important. These are very common mistakes, and we have to be aware when we are writing this. When we are writing your essay, you have to just consider this. The majority of the things that we've seen today are really important to consider. Let's say that we have a writing task 2, an essay, and let's say that these are developing paragraphs. Developing paragraphs. Okay, when both paragraphs are going to present something that is different in terms of opinion, different things that we are saying, we are going to actually use, on the one hand, on the other hand. So these are different opinions. One opinion is like that, and the other opinion is like that. So the different opinions, they do not agree as opinions. They are opposite. However, and this is very usual, when we see two paragraphs, but those two paragraphs are actually not opposite, they have only added information that has the same opinion, they're not opposite, we cannot write on the one hand and on the other hand. We can write to begin with, comma, this has one direction like that, and here, not on the other hand, besides, in addition, additionally. Because it has the same direction. It has the same direction, the same opinion, so it's not on the other hand. That is also an issue that we've seen in the writing here. Alright, so just about finished. And I think that's pretty much yes. Well, this was the correction for today. I hope you enjoy this, and we have made some changes in your understanding of the grammar in this case, in this kind of writings. And well, our contact information is down below here in the description. Any questions you may have, any interest that you have about the preparation of the test. We also offer courses that are presential and also online. And the particularity of these courses is that we have the same level of success in the presential classes and also in the online classes that we offer. Therefore, it's open for you. You can write anytime to us. And I hope you enjoy this. And more corrections will be coming soon. We are going to start doing this because we believe that this is going to be useful for all. Okay? So take care. Thank you.